Happy New Year, everyone. Jessica here. If you've known me for a long time, you know that New Year's Day is my very favorite holiday. I love that it's all about rethinking and reshuffling and redoing and starting over and having a blank slate and all of that. I really love that a lot. And I'm about to start my blank slate of my journal sketchbook for 2026. But before I do that, I thought it would be fun to show you my book for 2025, which I almost got done, but didn't. Never do. Little holes here and there. Rather than calling it a walkthrough, I call mine a talk through because I explain where these pages came from and stories behind them. And so it's not just quiet and it's not just music, and I stay long enough to let you see what the pages are like. This is my favorite art form. And going into 2026, I have retired from a lot of other big activities and can pay a lot more attention to my YouTube channel. And that's what I want to do this year. YouTube channel and watercolor and art of all kinds, but lots of sketchbook how-to and sketchbook look at and so on. So without further ado, let's take a look here. This is what I call my small adventures sketchbook, and it refers to things that happen at home or close to home or little day trips or so on. And if I take a big road trip, I will put that in a book of its own. I also love I'm going to tell you about my favorite sketchbook and how I like to approach the covers here. My favorite sketchbooks are the beta version, the soft cover of the Stillman and Birn sketchbook. Now, this is not 100% cotton watercolor paper. It is a cellulose-based paper. Well, all paper is cellulose-based, but this is a wood cellulose, not a cotton cellulose. But anyway, that's a technicality that we don't need to worry about. But I find that I have been able to do anything and everything that I need to do in these books. It's a nice, heavy page, and it takes watercolor beautifully, and it takes every other medium beautifully, too. And so I am sitting here realizing some things about my sketchbooking habit and my, as we're going to say, real life or my life journaling habit. And so, anyway, that's the favorite sketchbook. Mostly I work in watercolor and ink, but I work in a lot of other things too, and with photos and with things I stick in there. And I always love to put a sticker, not of my own, on the cover. And these come from Little Truths Studio, and I'll put that link in the description below, because she just makes beautiful and meaningful stickers. And so almost all of my sketchbooks or journals have one of her stickers on them. Another truth that comes to me is that as I'm looking at my 2025 on the 31st of December, I'm realizing I didn't finish it. It's got a lot of blanks in it. And this is one of the things that stops people sometimes from continuing this habit, is, being locked into the thought that every page has to be filled, that one page has to be done before you can deal with anything else. And there's a big trap here about that. A lot of my style is what I call making coloring books for myself. And this is not a good example because it isn't finished. But the idea is that when I space out a page and decide what it's going to be, I can come back to it at any time. What's important to me when I want to record something is that I get in there as loose as I can with this. I use a 3H pencil that erases easily, and so I'm free to make notes about what the date was and what happened and how I want to illustrate that. And if I don't get it all done, it's here to come back to on a day that maybe I don't have another life adventure to put in. I mean, there's an adventure in life every day, right? But some are big and some are less big and some are meh, I don't feel like drawing that. And so my books are not a daily practice. I've tried that. I love the idea. I failed at it badly many, many times. And so I'm getting very comfortable with my idea of my life books are not going to be complete. And someday they might be, hopefully. And oftentimes I'll go back to years old books and I'll get in there and I'll be coloring and having the best time reliving those adventures. This walkthrough that we're going to do, though, I'm going to have a lot of holes in it. And I'm going to explain that as I go. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why and how these pages were created. I think it's an important part of the story, and also over time as I do some of my, what I call a sketchbook talk through instead of a walkthrough, I'm hoping I'm going to impart a lot of knowledge about illustration of different kinds. So anyway, this is a title page and it'll have something in it. And I broke my own rule here and I don't have my name and address in the cover. I recommend that in case you ever leave this somewhere. But I know what the book is. I put here what it is. And so I will create, at the end of knowing everything that's in here, I'll probably create a title page. When I start the year, every year, I take a lot of classes online because it's really fun to me and it gets me going and, creatively. And so, and by the way, background noises are provided by 3 Siberian Huskies that are in my garden studio with me. So shaking or a little growling or whatever we hear, that's them. So I started 2025, I was experimenting with different styles. My style is pretty tight in watercolor, and so I was saying, what would it look like if I just really tried to loosen that up? And I wasn't really, to be honest, I wasn't really happy with any of these. I did a little experimenting with different, I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico, so this color, this ochre, is just a huge part of my palette. And so, so's turquoise, and you'll notice I've gotten some acrylic turquoise there that's not coming off. But anyway, this was experimenting with a totally different loose style and some different ochres. And I was not that happy with this spread, but that isn't the point. The point is learning what I could learn from it. And then I was taking a Skillshare class by Amy Stewart, who's a sketchbook artist and an author that I really, really admire. And you notice that this isn't done either. But I have come back a couple of times and gone back to the lesson and continued with this. And she has another gorgeous door from somewhere in Europe that'll be on this page. And this is just something that I came up with on my own. It was Phenology Week, which happens every year in March. And there's a little thing to do each day to connect with nature. And I didn't even find this until the third day, but I decided to put the story of me and my glass of Chardonnay and the gnats that commit suicide in my glass of Chardonnay when I'm in the garden. I wrote, it's kind of a little poem, but I did the pictures of the process here, a real easy sketching thing, and I don't kill anything. I'm an aspiring Buddhist. I probably will never get to a good level about it, but I don't take life, even of bugs, and I try to save them and carry spiders out. No, you know how that goes. So anyway, the garden gnats love Chardonnay and get too drunk to fly away. I rescue them with whatever's nearby and blow their wings dry so they can fly right back to the place where they surely might die. And this is a true story. It's absolutely a true story. That's what they do. But it's so cute when you exhale on them and their wings dry and they get all happy again. But I don't know, something about a destructive bent they have. This is a very simple day's adventure, and it's got a lot of photographs in it. A friend and I discovered a new gallery art space in Santa Fe in a out-of-the-way place, and we wanted to explore. So we went there and we met the owner. His name is Daryl, and this is his dream come true, and this is his sticker logo. So I'm talking about this page a little bit more because I didn't draw anything here. I colored a feather onto his hat there. I don't know if that's part of the sticker. It's not. I added the feather. Okay, and so these are actually photos. He has a refrigerator it's full of little art magnets, and it's called Fridge with Benefits, and the sales of those magnets, he gives some of that to his charity of choice at the time, and it happens to be the animal shelter. Daryl's art are these wonderful cutout rusted raven pieces and other kinds of pieces that come from the hoods of cars. And he told me about a place called Resourceful Santa Fe where all kinds of things get recycled to other people, and they have a really large art supply, art paper part. So the point here is that photos are as good as drawings. And for a long time, I combined them both. Then I went into this long period of time where I only did drawings. And then when I started to put photos in again, and I am a photographer, I do consider my photos to be art, but still I had this guilt thing. Like, oh, you didn't draw it, you put a picture in. Sometimes you can't draw better than what your photo is, and so why? And this is faster, you get more pages done. And so every year I do a page called First Dirt, and I'm a gardener, and it refers to the first day I get my hands in dirt. And so this time it was not until April because it was kind of cold and wet. And I just tell little stories that are happening, and I wait for the first hummingbird, and I always mark when they showed up. And this is about my grass plants, and why that is in here, I don't know. I just felt like drawing them. And then up here is a fun thing, and I have sketched this many times over the years, but I put out a bird Home Depot in the spring, and it's some stoneware pots, and I put husky fur from my dogs in some of them in little sticks, and leftover things from nests that have fallen out of trees from last year. And they come shopping for the stuff to build their nest, and it's right outside my office window. And so it's so fun to watch. And the most fun is the titmouse, because they got that little thing on their head, and they're so cute anyway, but they just stuff their face with fur until it's almost all you can see. They look like Gabby Hayes, the old cowboy movie star. But anyway, that's what this page is about, is my, awakening to the garden for the year of 2025. Then I wanted more inspiration, so I went and I signed up for a sketchbook journal course that Gregory was having, and he and I are about the same. We started sketching about the same time. We started teaching online about sketching about the same time, and so I followed him along in all of his adventures, and this class sounded like a nice little kickstart, because it was prompts for 31 days. Of course, I didn't get the whole 31 days done, but this prompt was about a process. And at that time, I was coming up with a new way to show some art prints in a local gallery where I don't own it. I just have my work in there. And so this was the process. I used Scrabble tiles and glued them inside this little, shadow box frame so that the print would be lifted up, and it was fun, and these were the materials I used. And so I thought that makes a fun spread. And then there was a prompt about moments. I want to pick a moment in your day. And I had just had a road trip to Texas, which is in another book. But when I go to Texas, the HEB supermarket. Hey, you guys, don't play in here. We're getting a little bit of sun striping in here, but as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted by growling, the HEB supermarkets in Texas are just my favorite markets in the entire planet, I swear. And they're not outside of Texas, as far as I know. At least they're not in New Mexico. So when I go there, I buy their incredible cranberry pistachio bread that's baked on the premises. And I love it. And so that's a moment, that I wanted to record about my life, because I won't forget it probably anyway, but I kind of had fun with how do you paint cranberries and pistachios in something. And this is one of my grid pages, and I do this a lot. You'll see it finished and not finished and so on. And this was a prompt about what you do in your first couple hours of the day or something like that. I don't remember, obviously, but this seems to be what I do in the first hours of my day. So, and studying the sky is part of that in New Mexico, because our skies are so amazing. And then we've got a really unfinished page that I showed you. This was my first purchase of annuals. And so what'll happen is that this will end up having, be filled with paintings of the flowers I bought. And I got them all noted here. And this is a quote I ran into in a book, and I love it. Say, I get to do this instead of I have to do this. Makes it feel a lot better. Okay, this is a corner of where I'm sitting right now, a corner of my studio. And my studio is also a greenhouse, my watercolor studio. And so there are always plants around, and there are plant-themed things. And I have a pair of these wonderful lamps. Can't remember where they came from. Probably will never find them again, but I love them. And this, with the leaves and everything like that. And then this is a metal beam that holds up part of my roof in the greenhouse. And these are letters. I read a book one time called Storage something. I'll find it. I loved it. I'll put the link below. But I read a book about a gal who found a note that said yes somewhere, and it changed her life. And I was on a road trip when I read it, and so I stopped in a store in Eureka Springs, Arkansas, and they had the letters like this. I mean, it wasn't the word yes, but they had the whole alphabet. So I bought it, and I put magnets on it, and it's on the metal. And then this little sculpture I really love enough that I pulled it over here, and the whole thing is metal, and it's a magnet. So the birdies can be anywhere on the tree, and it's painted. It's just a lovely thing. And I thought, that's too small. It doesn't do it justice, so I gave it a page of its own. I bought this in a art town called Douglas, near Saugatuck, Michigan. Many years ago, though, so I don't know if that artist is still around or what. This is a little bigger than a single day. I just got in the car and went to Taos overnight. I know, how lucky am I, right, that I can do that? I wasn't very far along before the air conditioning went out, and so that made the trip a little different. This is, May, late May, and so it's warm. And anyway, I had to drive with the windows open, and I also like to drive looking around a lot, and it's a 2-lane highway. And so I pulled over when a couple cars got behind me to be considerate, and to roll both windows down and to get the heat out of the van as much as I could. But anyway, when I did, this was sitting there just behind a few trees, so you would have driven right by and never seen it. And it's not open now, but it was like somebody's little dream of having a junk art gallery. And so I had to take a picture of it. I had to sketch it. I couldn't sit there and sketch it because it was so darn hot and cars were zooming by all the time. And so when I got to Taos, I went to Martyr's Steakhouse, which is well known and good food. And they had a wonderful thing going on with their fireplace. They had candles in it. And I stayed in a amusing I stayed in a lot of Airbnbs, but this one was amusing because it was like a carport thing here, and you drove in, and then that was your porch, and the people's house was back over here, but this used to be this guy's garage where he worked on old cars, which is funny because my husband Mark adores old cars, and so this guy had a lot to say about that. And I sat out here in these little blue chairs, and I looked around, and I saw a lot of rust, and I love painting rust. And so these are vastly exaggerated, obviously, out of scale by a long way. But I like to do that. I like to scan my environment and see what pops out at me. And when something does, I like to pull it. And by that, I mean, let's take a really close look at it. And proportion doesn't matter to me. Composition does, and there will be a lot about that in the future. And so the way this is arranged is very important to me. But the relative size, the reality of the whole thing has never actually been important to me. As a painter, I am known as a surrealist, and so I don't really care if it's real or not. I care if it makes me remember and it's interesting and well arranged. So these were little bells, and then this thing was really making some noise in the breeze. And these were rocks. They were really odd colored rocks that, I don't know if they were rocks that color, but that's what they looked like. And here's another gardening page, and just, I evidently had a lot of hours to sketch, and what I did, and this is what I mean, that there is adventure in every single day. It doesn't matter that you sit there at dinner and say, boy, that wasn't exciting. All I did was relax. I drew. But it is exciting. And there are always things that you can pull out of that to remember. And it'll take you right back to that moment, usually. I'm not sure what I thought I was doing here. But if I can't remember, then I will come back and do something else here. This was another, just a little day trip. And we have a town, a couple of old mining towns south of Santa Fe, down a highway called the Turquoise Trail. And two friends and I went down to a place called the Beer Creek Brewing Company. And they had an outdoor patio and a fireplace. And none of it looked this good, to be honest. That looked pretty good. The fireplace kind of beat up and burned up. But I have this thing where I try to restore. It's my book, and it's more of a cartoony style, so I get to change it and restore it so it didn't have burn marks and bad things like that. They have great pizza if you're ever here, and music on the patio in the summer, so very cool. Same friends and I, but 2 months later, I think, something like that. It's like, this is not daily. Do I sketch daily? Yes. Do I paint daily? Yes. And I do a lot of art every day, but I don't always get into my books daily, for lots of reasons, business reasons usually. Anyway, so there's time that goes by, and that's okay. Who cares? I'm putting the stuff that sticks out. This is an origami gallery that's also down the Turquoise Trail. It wasn't the same day though. And, this was a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful area of Red Rock. And it was just nature when I first moved here so many years ago. And now this sculptor is a great sculptor. But the land was better before, and this is steel origami, and it's really awesome. All these flowers are metal, and this is Pegasus about to take off. And over here is this thing was about 3 times longer, but I ran out of room. But every place that they had a showing of this sculpture is on here with the state and the number of miles from here. Oddly, these are not all pointing correctly because Texas is not that way. But anyway, and Alabama isn't either. But anyway, that's not important. They had parasols there, which were so cool. And my friends are silly, and they loved having them for sun protection, but also they were dancing around and twirling them and stuff. And I got in an argument with the lady because I didn't want to carry a parasol, and she said I had to because of the hot sun here in New Mexico. And I said, I'm a gardener here in New Mexico. I'm going to be all right. But it was kind of funny because the convincing effort went on and on. This is an idea of what happens sometimes when I just don't have the time for it. I have pictures, and this is a farmer's market located down by Albuquerque called Lantern Ridge, and it's just cool and remote. And they have a little shop, and they have artisans in with the food. And anyway, this is going to be the entranceway and their logo and something about a truck. But I can do this much and leave this until I can come back to it. And because I have said what I want to say, I've chosen how I want to represent that experience. And it's in my phone, some pictures to look at for what color was that and so on. Another sketching friend came to town to visit, and she is a van life person, has a home, but those vans that you go out, single livable vans. And she had one, so she stayed at the local KOA, and I hadn't ever been there because I'm not a van life person. And when I saw their entryway, I went, wow, I really, really like that. So I sketched that. And this is all painting, no photos here, so I'll just go back and forth, right? And we got together with my other 2 sketching friends, and we had a little meal, and I taught them how to draw bowls, and I made a chicken salad, and we had lemon blueberry bread and quiche in a muffin shape. It was a great little party that we did. And because I drew this, I did what I love to do, one of my recipes. And my recipes they always look like this, or food is flying around or whatever. I don't do them in the same kind of sequence, but I draw all the ingredients and say what to do with them. And I guess I got a finished picture over here, right? And we don't have far to go here because I am in this same visit by this same friend. The next day we spent at the Santa Fe Farmers Market, and Santa Fe's Farmers Market is like number 10 in the country for coolness. And it was fun because my friend, I walked in and I saw this little rag doll, and it was just a part of a really big display, and I went over and took a picture of it, and she said, that's what I really love, how you just pick a thing out of a whole busy area. And I love that too, but it's, this is going to take me back there more than the food pictures or writing about it. This kind of drawing just takes you right back to the place. But this is interesting because I'm combining photos with drawings. And the reason, like I said before, sometimes the photo's better. Like this, I could work a month on this, but I'm not going to get all that nuance of color that I so appreciated. Love the carrot cascade here. Love the bucket of chili. And so it had a lot of background that was busy. So I cut it out. I printed it and I cut it out. And I painted the green peppers because I thought that I could make a pretty thing in watercolor that might be even prettier than my photo. And it was. And I'm painting these guys, which I believe are turnips or something. I don't know what they are. I'll figure it out. So I seem to have forgotten. It's not a vegetable that I eat, and they weren't beets. I think they were turnips. But anyway, these will be red chilies that will be painted instead of a photo. And these were called fairy wing eggplants. And they're going to be very cool, too. They're skinny, and they have a little purple, and they're like this. And this, to me, was a challenge. I was, like, excited about how to take watercolor and create something that's basically off-white and then goes to such a deep other color. So that's a little control struggle. It's still going on. But anyway, there is much more to this. We went to this old church, and I want to draw that, and we went to a studio tour. And so this is not done. And I had high hopes that by the end of today, this would be done. But it's not. And it's okay. I am going to finish it, but I am going to take a new Stillman and Birn out for 2026, and I'm going to take a new thought process and name out to my practice so that I feel comfortable in putting anything in here that tells my story so that I can know my story when I can no longer remember my story. All right. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully it gave you a flavor of what I have planned this year, because I'm going to really concentrate on videos for YouTube. See you soon.